Let's bring in Sysman Motloung to unpack the latest development. For now, this, of course, as the ANC has just said, it will approach the Supreme Court of Appeal in the Cadre Deployment Committee Records court case. Sysman, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on the SABC.
I'll say thanks for having me.
All right, Sysman, let's look at the developments and this approach by the ANC. What's your reaction? Did it come as any surprise?
No, this is not a surprise. There were options. It's either the ANC had to appeal the decision by the court, and for them to clarify at this time, it makes sense. The other option was for them either to not comply. They either not to comply with that decision, and they would have been in contempt of court. Then they would have a DA having to take that further with the court, or maybe ANC releasing these documents in bunches, to give them a first batch, second batch, or even all completely. So what they are arguing now is that they possibly have had no time, according to what the DA is saying, to issue out all that record. I think they will have to discuss with the DA, maybe receiving that information in batches. But for the ANC to appeal this makes perfect sense for the kind of delays that have accrued.
On that note, let's look at how the policy faced increased scrutiny since the Zondo Commission's consideration of the issue, and perhaps also the dangers or the limits in relation to the DA's High Court win. I mean, what does this mean for the DA? What does this mean for the ANC, perhaps all other political parties going forward?
Yeah, this case really gives us into perspective what maybe we could talk about political science when we talk about inter-party relations. The nature of relationships that political parties have in a political system is very important on determining the consolidation or regress in democracy. So what we see here is a very cordial, cooperative relationship between the two parties that are in opposition, vying for power. And how the ANC responded to this, it has been mature, and we have to commend the ANC for that. And this, what the DA has been doing, is an approach to say, should they find something sinister in those minutes, it would have an arsenal for them to utilize against the ANC in the process of fighting for power. Then you've had there are other people say, oh, ANC also can also request some kind of that record from the DA, because this practice of cadre deployment is generic in political parties, where a political party that is in power will send trusted people, trusted officials in government to implement the policies of that political party. So that aside, for me, something we have to commend is how these political parties are approaching this thing in a mature manner, and also using the courts, which is a conduit that ensures there is stability, there is a peaceful contestation of power, instead of somehow being lacking respect, being crude about it, or even maybe violent. So this is something we have to celebrate about our political system.
I wonder, as we look at the South Africa's state of affairs and governance problems to date, can we blame forms of cadre deployment for the state? Can a form of cadre deployment help to solve South Africa's governance issues as well? Help us understand that, perhaps, as we head into elections.
Yeah. That is the argument the DA is making, that all corruption you have in South Africa, all maladministration we see, from a local level to national level, is because of the ANC cadre deployment policy. In that, it is the ANC that decides who goes at the executive, even executive leadership of state departments. Now, that delves back to a cadre deployment onto who did the ANC send. And these people, were they capable people, were they people with the interests of the state more than the party? And it takes us back to President Zuma when he spoke, I think it was in Parliament, when he said, for me, ANC comes first. And when you send people around this line of a cadre and they know that they are there because of a party ticket, the party comes first. If the party is complicit in corrupt dealings, the party instructs them to decide otherwise, make certain decisions, even deviate from the norm, even the legal prescripts. They honor the party more than they would honor the constitution. The debate is basically on that. Now it goes back to if the shoe was on the DA or EFF's foot, would the DA approach it differently? Would EFF approach it differently? And for us is to look into that aspect, the quality of leadership that these political parties send into state positions is very important, and it delves mainly on that aspect. You cannot talk about corruption and not go back to who did they send. Look at SAA, the likes of Dudumien. You look also in any state agency, any state department. These are people who have some link or are related with somebody who is in power in the ANC.
Sysman Motloung, thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.